"Don't go in that house," the neighbor whispered as I reached my daughter's door. 2 days earlier, Megan had told me she was sick. I went to visit her to bring her food and surprise her. But when I got there, Helen stopped me with those words. Her eyes were trembling with fear. "Don't go in. You should know this." 15 minutes later, my life turned into a nightmare I never imagined possible, because what I discovered behind that door wasn't my sick daughter resting in her bed. It was something much worse. Something no mother should ever see. But let me start at the beginning, because you need to understand how I got to that moment. How a simple mother's visit transformed into the darkest day of my existence. My name is Carol. I'm 66 years old. I've lived alone in a small house since my husband died 4 years ago. My days are quiet, almost boring. I water the plants in the garden. I cook for myself. I watch my soap operas in the afternoon. But my real reason for getting up every morning is my daughter, Megan. She's all I have in this world, my only family, my treasure. Megan is 32 years old. She married Julian 3 years ago, a man who works in real estate. He always seemed strange to me. Too perfect. A calculated smile, measured words, expensive suits. They live in a modern apartment on the other side of the city, 2 hours from my house. I don't see them as much as I'd like, but we talk on the phone almost every day. Those conversations are my lifeline. Hearing her voice makes me feel like I'm still useful, that I still matter. It all started on a Tuesday morning. The phone rang while I was making coffee. It was Megan, but her voice sounded different, off, distant. "Mom, I'm not going to be able to visit you this weekend. I'm sick. I feel terrible. I think it's the flu. My whole body aches." My mother's instinct kicked in immediately. I asked her if she had gone to the doctor, if Julian was taking care of her, if she needed me to come. "No, Mom, don't worry. I just need to rest. Julian is here with me." But something in her tone wasn't right. I've known her since she was born. I knew when something was wrong. I tried to ask more questions. She cut me off quickly. "I have to go, Mom. We'll talk tomorrow." And she hung up. On Wednesday, I waited for her call all day. From morning until night, nothing, not a single word. I sent her messages. "Honey, how are you? Honey, answer me. Honey, you've got me worried." No response. Thursday dawned, and the anxiety was eating me alive. I called her phone 5 times in a row. All the calls went straight to voicemail. Her recorded voice said, "Hi, I can't take your call right now. Please leave a message." That voice I loved so much now terrified me. I tried to contact Julian. His phone was also off, completely dead. It was in that moment that something broke inside me. A mother knows. A mother feels it in her bones when her child is in danger. It doesn't matter the distance, it doesn't matter the age. The invisible cord that has connected us since the day she was born is never cut. And that cord was now screaming that something was terribly wrong. I made a decision. I would go see her. I would prepare her favorite food and surprise her. If she was really sick, she needed her mother by her side. No store-bought soup could replace a mother's homemade broth. I spent all Thursday morning cooking. I made chicken soup with fresh vegetables, rice, and the beef stew she loved as a kid. I prepared every dish with love and with that knot in my stomach that wouldn't let me breathe properly. I wrapped everything carefully in thermal containers. I put on my burgundy sweater, the one Megan had given me for my birthday, my comfortable shoes for the long trip. Before leaving, I looked at a picture of her in the living room. She was smiling in that ivory-colored dress she wore on her last visit 2 months ago. "I'm coming, my love," I whispered, touching the glass of the frame. The bus ride was torture. 2 hours that seemed like 2 years. I looked out the window without really seeing anything. Gray buildings, crowded streets, traffic lights changing color. Everything passed by like a blurry movie. My hands wouldn't stop trembling on the bags of food. I tried to calm down. Maybe her phone was broken. Maybe she was so sick she didn't have the strength to answer. Maybe Julian had rushed her to the hospital, and that's why they couldn't respond. But my heart was beating too fast. My breathing was shallow. The bus smelled like diesel and sweat. A woman sitting in front of me was talking on the phone about problems with her son-in-law. Men today aren't like they used to be. she said angrily. They don't take care of their wives like they should. I felt a chill run down my spine. I arrived at the station near Megan's apartment, just after 3 in the afternoon. I got off the bus carrying my heavy bags. I walked the 3 remaining blocks. The sun was high, but I felt a chill in my bones. The building where my daughter lives rose in front of me like a tower of glass and concrete. Modern, elegant, safe, or at least I thought so. Today it looked different, menacing, as if it were guarding dark secrets behind those shining windows. I entered the lobby. The doorman saw me arrive. Mike, an older man who had always been kind to me on my previous visits. But today his face was tense, serious. "Carol," he began to say, I need to talk to you." But I didn't have time for conversations. I was already walking toward the elevator. "I'm going to see my daughter," I told him with a smile I didn't feel. "She's sick, and I brought her food." He took a step toward me. His mouth opened as if to say something important, but I had already pressed the elevator button. The doors opened, and I got in quickly. The elevator began to rise. Floor 1, floor 2, floor 3. My reflection stared back at me from the mirrored wall. A 66-year-old woman with a face marked by fear, gray hair pulled back, tired, red eyes, wrinkled hands clutching bags of food that now felt as heavy as stones. I looked old, fragile, scared. Floor 4, floor 5, floor 6. The elevator was making a strange metallic noise. Or maybe it was my heart. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. Floor 7. The doors opened with a soft sound. I stepped out into the hallway. Absolute silence. Not a voice. Not a television on. Not footsteps. Nothing. Just the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. I walked toward apartment 73. My shoes echoed against the tile floor. Every step was an effort. Every foot was an eternity. Then I saw her. Helen. The neighbor from the apartment next door. She was standing in the frame of her slightly open door, watching me. Her expression made my blood run cold. Eyes wide open, mouth trembling, face as pale as paper. When she saw me approaching, she quickly came out and walked toward me. She grabbed my arm tightly. Her fingers were like ice. Her breath smelled like bitter coffee. "Don't go in that house," she whispered, her mouth close to my ear. "You should know this before you go in." The world stopped. "What's going on?" I managed to say. My voice came out broken, almost a whisper. Helen was squeezing my arm so hard it hurt. Her face was inches from mine. I could see the red veins in her eyes. She had been crying. "There are police inside," she said, pointing to the door of Megan's apartment. "They arrived early this morning, with sirens, with radios. They broke down the door because no one would open it. Carol, your daughter isn't in there." The words didn't make sense. Police, sirens, broken door. My daughter isn't. "What do you mean she's not there?" I shouted. "Where is Megan? Where is my baby?" Helen let go of my arm and took a step back. "I don't know anything else," she said in a trembling voice. "I just know something very bad happened. Something that has the police everywhere looking for her." My legs gave out from under me. The bags of food fell to the floor. I heard the sound of containers breaking. The soup spilled, forming a dark puddle on the tile. The stew scattered. The rice spread everywhere. But I didn't care. Nothing mattered, except getting to that door. Knowing what had happened to my daughter, I lunged forward. Helen tried to stop me, but I wasn't myself anymore. I was a primal force. A mother in absolute panic. I rang the doorbell, once, twice, 3 times in a row. No one answered. I started banging on the door with my fists. "Megan!" I screamed with all the strength in my lungs. "Megan, it's Mom! Open this door!" Tears were streaming down my face uncontrollably. My throat burned. My knuckles ached against the hard wood. "Open up, please. It's my daughter. My daughter is in there." I heard footsteps approaching from inside. Male voices. The sound of locks turning. The door opened just a few inches. A man in a police uniform looked at me through the crack. "Who are you?" he asked in a firm, cold voice. I'm Megan's mother, I said, trying to control the tremor in my voice. What is going on here? Where is my daughter? Let me in right now. The officer exchanged a look with someone else inside, then he opened the door completely. Come in, ma'am. But I'm warning you. What you're about to see isn't easy. I staggered inside. My eyes took a moment to adjust to the light, and then I saw my daughter's apartment, my baby, my Megan. It was absolute chaos. Overturned furniture, cushions thrown on the floor. The coffee table was broken, glass scattered everywhere. The lamp I had given her myself was shattered against the wall. There were dark marks on the floor, stains that looked like they had been cleaned up in a hurry. And the smell. Dear God, the smell. A mix of cleaning chemicals and something else. Something metallic that turned my stomach. There were 3 police officers inside. 2 men and 1 woman, all wearing gloves. They were photographing everything, picking things up with tweezers and putting them into evidence bags. The female officer approached me. Her face showed professional compassion. Ma'am, I need you to come and sit down. This is a crime scene, and you can't touch anything. Crime scene. Those words hit me like a hammer. My knees buckled. She held me up and guided me to the only armchair left standing. Where is my daughter? I repeated like a broken record. Where is Megan? What happened here? Please, someone tell me what's going on. The officer knelt in front of me. Ma'am, your daughter was reported missing 24 hours ago. A coworker called when she didn't show up for an important meeting and wasn't answering her phone. We sent a unit to do a wellness check. When we arrived this morning, the door was locked, but we found signs of a violent struggle inside. Your daughter is not here. We don't know where she is. The world turned to liquid. The walls were moving. The ceiling was spinning. Missing. Violent struggle. We don't know where she is. The words bounced around in my head, finding no place to land. This couldn't be happening. It was a nightmare. I was going to wake up in my house, in my bed, and this would all be just a bad dream. But the smell of chemicals was too real. The cold in the apartment was too real. The fear in the officer's eyes was too real. And Julian? I managed to ask. Where is Julian, her husband? The officer exchanged another look with her colleagues. That look told me everything. Julian is also missing, she said slowly. His office reported he hasn't shown up for work for the past 3 days. His phone is off. His car isn't in the building's parking garage. Ma'am, we need to ask you some questions. I sat there, in my daughter's destroyed apartment, answering questions I could barely process. When was the last time you spoke with Megan? Tuesday, 2 days ago. What did she sound like? Strange, off, scared, maybe. Did she mention anything unusual? She said she was sick, that Julian was with her. But now I understood. Now I saw the horrible truth clearly. That call wasn't a casual conversation. It was a disguised cry for help. And I didn't see it. I didn't help her when she needed me. You were right to come, the officer said, touching my shoulder. A mother always knows. But now we need your help. We need you to tell us everything you know about Julian, about their relationship, about anything that seemed strange to you. Any detail could be important. I closed my eyes. The images started coming. Julian with his perfect smile. Julian always so polite, so proper, so controlling. The small comments I had ignored. The times Megan canceled visits at the last minute. The phone calls she would cut short when he entered the room. The bruise I once saw on her arm that she said she got from falling. I think he was hurting her, I whispered. I think my daughter was living in fear, and I didn't want to see it. The tears were falling uncontrollably now. The officer nodded. We're investigating that possibility. But ma'am, there's something else you need to know. Something we found here that changes everything. What? What did you find? She hesitated. Then she spoke. We found evidence that Julian is not who he says he is. His real name isn't Julian. His documents are fake. And we believe your daughter discovered something she wasn't supposed to know. The apartment started to spin. My breathing became shallow, rapid. I couldn't fill my lungs with air. The officer held me. Easy, ma'am. Breathe. One of the officers brought a glass of water. I took it with trembling hands. The water was warm. It tasted like metal. What did my daughter discover? I asked when I could speak. What was he hiding? We don't know for sure yet, the officer replied. But we believe it's related to money laundering. Possibly organized crime. We found documents hidden in the apartment. Suspicious bank transfers. Accounts under false names. Your daughter was an accountant, right? I nodded. She worked at a major firm downtown. Then she had the skills to spot financial irregularities, the officer continued. We think she found something in Julian's finances, something big. And when she tried to confront him, things got out of control. I stared at the dark stains on the floor. Blood. It was my daughter's blood. They had cleaned it, but I could still see the residue. My baby had bled on this floor. She had fought. She had tried to escape. And I was 2 hours away, watching soap operas, watering plants, not knowing her life was in danger. Ma'am. The officer's voice brought me back. We are going to find her. We have all our teams searching. We've issued an alert. We're tracking Julian's phone, reviewing security cameras, questioning neighbors. We're not going to stop until we bring your daughter back, but we need you to be strong, to help us, to trust us. I nodded, unable to speak. My throat was closed. The tears kept falling, but they were silent now. It was a silent cry. The cry of a mother who had just understood that the world isn't safe, that danger can live in your own home, that you can love someone and not know them at all. The officer helped me to my feet. We're going to take you to the station. You can rest there and talk more calmly. We need all the information possible about Julian, photos, conversations, anything you remember. I walked to the door like a zombie. My legs were moving, but I couldn't feel them. I passed the table where Megan and Julian used to have dinner, past the sofa where we watched movies when I visited, past the small shelf where she kept photos of our family. It was all a lie. Every smile, every hug, every moment of happiness had been built on a foundation of deceit. I stepped out into the hallway. Helen was still there, standing near her door. Her face showed horror and pity. "I'm so sorry," she whispered as I passed her. "If I had known anything sooner, I would have told you." I thanked her with a nod. It wasn't her fault. It wasn't anyone's fault except for that monster who had posed as my daughter's husband. We went down in the elevator. The officer held my arm as if I were a fragile old woman. And maybe in that moment I was. Mike saw us leaving. His face fell. "I tried to tell you something this morning, Carol," he said in a strained voice, "when I saw all the police. But you went up so fast." "I know," I replied. "It's not your fault. No one is to blame except him." Outside, a patrol car was waiting. They put me in the back seat. I had never been in a police car. The seat was hard. It smelled like plastic and old sweat. Through the window, I saw the building where my daughter lived. The windows shined with the afternoon Sunday. Everything looked so normal from the outside, so peaceful. No one could imagine the horror hidden on the 7th floor. The squad car pulled away. The streets passed by in a blur. People walked on the sidewalks, shopping, laughing, talking on their phones, living their normal lives while mine was falling apart. We arrived at the police station, a gray, square building that looked like something out of an old movie. They took me to a small room with a table and 4 chairs. The walls were cream-colored. There was a window with bars that looked out onto a parking lot. They offered me coffee. I accepted it, even though I knew I couldn't drink it. I needed something to do with my hands. Something to keep me in this world and not let me fall into the abyss of panic I felt growing inside me. A detective entered the room. He was a man in his 50s. Graying hair, deep wrinkles around his eyes, a face that had seen too much. He shook my hand. "Carol, I'm Detective Wallace. I'm in charge of your daughter's disappearance investigation. I want you to know we are going to do everything humanly possible to find her." His voice was firm but kind. I clung to that kindness like a lifeline. He sat down across from me and opened a folder. "I need you to tell me everything you know about Julian. From the beginning. How did Megan meet him? What was their relationship like? Did you notice anything strange? Any detail, no matter how small it seems, could help us." I took a deep breath and started talking. Megan met him 4 years ago at a business event. She was working as an accountant at a major firm. He said he was a real estate investor. At first, he seemed like a good man. Polite, attentive. He treated her well. Or so I thought. He continued to see her for a year. Then he proposed. It was all very fast. Too fast, now that I think about it. I had my doubts, but Megan was so happy. So in love. I didn't want to ruin her joy with my overprotective motherly worries. The wedding was small, just close family and a few friends. Julian said he had no family, that his parents had died in an accident when he was young, that he had no siblings. I should have been suspicious then. What kind of man has absolutely no one? Detective Wallace took notes. His eyes never left my face. After the wedding, he continued, "Did you notice changes in your daughter? In her behavior? In how she related to you?" I closed my eyes, trying to remember. Yes, Megan started canceling visits. She always had excuses. Work, tiredness, plans with Julian. When I went to visit them, he was always present. He never left us alone. He always found a reason to be in the room, to listen to our conversations. At first, I thought he was an attentive husband. Now I see it was control. And in recent months, Wallace asked, were there any more drastic changes? I thought about my last conversations with Megan, her voice increasingly dull. The video calls where she constantly looked over her shoulder as if afraid someone was listening. Yes. For the last 3 months, she seemed scared, nervous. She stopped smiling like she used to. She lost a lot of weight. Once I saw a bruise on her arm. She said she'd hit it on a door. I believed her. My God, I believed her and left her alone with that monster. "It's not your fault," Wallace said firmly. "Abusers are experts at hiding what they do, at making their victims lie for them, at isolating them from their loved ones. You couldn't have known." But my tears said otherwise. I was her mother. I should have known. I should have asked more questions. I should have gotten her out of there. Wallace closed his folder and leaned forward. "Carol, there's something I need to tell you. Something we discovered that's going to be hard to hear." My heart sped up. "What? What else could there be?" "The man you know as Julian," he continued, "doesn't exist. That name is fake. His documents are forged. Very well forged, but fake. We've been tracking his real identity, and what we found is disturbing." I swallowed. The coffee in my hand was shaking. "Who is he, really?" Wallace opened another folder. He took out a photo and put it in front of me. It was Julian, but different. A different haircut, no beard, younger. "This man," Wallace said, pointing to the photo, "is actually named Vincent Black. He has a record in 2 countries: fraud, money laundering, extortion. He's used at least 5 different identities in the last 10 years. He marries women with good jobs, women with access to money or financial information. He uses them, and when he doesn't need them anymore, he disappears." The world stopped again. I had heard the words, but my brain refused to process them. Julian wasn't Julian. He was a criminal, a professional con man. He had seduced my daughter as part of a plan. He never loved her. He never felt anything for her. She was just a tool for him, a piece in his dirty game. "So Megan found out who he really was," I whispered. "That's why she disappeared. That's why there's blood in her apartment." Wallace nodded gravely. "We believe so. Your daughter was smart. She worked with numbers, with accounts. She probably noticed irregularities in Vincent's finances. She started to investigate. And when she found the truth, he had to act fast. But here's the interesting part. He took out another document. We found this hidden in a crack in the apartment floor, between the floorboards, as if someone had hidden it there on purpose. It was a handwritten note. It was Megan's handwriting. I'd recognize it anywhere. That handwriting I'd seen on birthday cards, on shopping lists, on recipes we shared. I took the paper with trembling hands and read, "Mom, if you're reading this, it's because something happened to me. Julian isn't who he says he is. I found out he launders money for dangerous people. A lot of money. Millions of dollars. He has accounts in tax havens, fake documents, connections to criminals. I've gathered evidence. I hid it in a safe place. If something happens to me, find it. It's in the house where I grew up, in the place where we kept our secrets. I love you. Mom, forgive me for not telling you sooner. I was afraid he would hurt you, too. My hands were shaking so much I could barely hold the paper. I read the note over and over. My daughter's words, her hurried writing, the fear you could feel in every stroke. She knew she was in danger. She had left this note as a cry for help from the future, like a bottle thrown into the sea, hoping someone would find it. And that someone was me, her mother, the only person in the world she could completely trust. The house where I grew up, I repeated aloud. The place where we kept our secrets. Detective Wallace looked at me intently. Do you know what she's referring to? Do you know where she hid the evidence? I closed my eyes and traveled back in time, Megan as a little girl, running through the yard of our old house, laughing, playing. We had a special place, a hiding spot only we knew about. In the basement, there was a wall of loose bricks. Behind one of those bricks, we kept our treasures. Letters, photos, little trinkets that were important only to us. Our secret chest, we called it. I know where it is, I said, opening my eyes. I can take you there right now. My house is 2 hours away. We can go and be back before dark. Wallace stood up immediately. Let's go. We need that evidence. It could be the key to finding your daughter alive. Those last 2 words pierced me. Alive. That meant there was a possibility she wasn't. That the bloodstains in her apartment were more than just a sign of a struggle. That Vincent had decided my daughter knew too much and it was easier to eliminate her than to let her live. No, I told myself firmly. I'm not going to think like that. Megan is alive. I'm going to find her. I'm going to bring her back. We left the station in Detective Wallace's car, an unmarked gray sedan. He drove fast but safely. I was in the passenger seat, watching the scenery fly by. The same streets I had traveled that morning. The same city. But everything looked different now, darker, more threatening, as if every shadow hid a danger. Every corner concealed a terrible secret. Tell me more about Vincent, Wallace said as he drove. Anything you remember. Places he went. Friends he mentioned. Business he talked about. I searched my memory. Julian, or Vincent, was always very private. He said he worked from home most of the time. That his investments were international, so he traveled a lot. Now I understand those trips were for his criminal operations. To move money, to meet with his delinquent partners. Did he ever mention specific places? Wallace asked. Properties he owned? Warehouses? Offices? Anything? I thought hard. About 6 months ago, I remembered suddenly, Megan mentioned that Julian had bought a property on the outskirts of the city. She said it was an investment, an industrial lot with some old buildings. She seemed uncomfortable when she mentioned it. She said she didn't understand why anyone would buy something so remote and in such bad shape. Wallace tensed. That's important, very important. Those kinds of isolated properties are perfect for illegal operations, for hiding things, or people. He made a quick call on his radio. I need a search on all properties under the name Julian Hayes or Vincent Black in a 100-mile radius, especially industrial lots or abandoned warehouses. Top priority. The drive to my house felt endless. Every minute was torture. Every red light was an eternity. My mind wouldn't stop creating horrible scenarios. Megan locked somewhere dark. Megan hurt. Megan calling for me. And me, unable to hear her. I breathed deeply, trying to stay calm. I had to be strong. I had to find that evidence. It was my mission, my purpose, the only thing that mattered right now. We finally arrived at my house. That small, yellow house with the garden out front. The place where I had raised my daughter. Where we had been happy. Where I never imagined I would one day be searching for evidence to save her life. I got out of the car before Wallace even turned off the engine. I ran to the door. My hands shook as I fumbled for the keys. I dropped them, picked them up, finally managed to open it. The house smelled closed up, lonely. I'd been gone for 2 days, and it felt like 2 years. Everything was exactly as I had left it. The coffee cup from Thursday morning still in the sink. The sweater I had considered wearing hanging on the back of a chair. A normal life frozen in time. Before everything became a nightmare. "The basement," I said to Wallace, who was right behind me. "It's this way." I walked to the small door under the stairs. I opened it. A smell of dampness rose from the darkness. I fumbled for the light switch. The bulb flickered before finally turning on completely. We went down the wooden stairs, which creaked under our weight. The basement was small, full of old boxes, furniture I no longer used. A lifetime of accumulated memories. I walked to the back wall, the wall of old, uneven bricks. I ran my fingers over the rough surface, searching for the right one. It was painted white, but the paint had flaked off over the years. 1, 2, 3 bricks up from the floor. 4 bricks over from the left corner. There, I found it. It was looser than the others. I pushed gently, and it gave way. I pulled it out completely, leaving a dark hole in the wall. I reached my hand into the opening. My fingers touched something. A plastic bag. I pulled it out carefully. It was a sealed bag. Inside was a manila envelope. Wallace moved closer. "Open it," he said, his voice tense. My hands trembled as I broke the seal on the bag. I pulled out the envelope. It was marked with Megan's handwriting. "Evidence. Do not open unless you're sure." I opened the envelope and emptied its contents onto an old box nearby. Photographs fell out. Documents. A USB drive. Printed sheets with numbers and bank accounts. Wallace began to examine them carefully. "My God," he murmured as he read. "This is huge. Much bigger than we thought." The photographs showed Vincent meeting with dangerous-looking men, in restaurants, in parking garages, in dark offices. The documents were bank transfers for millions of dollars. Accounts in the Cayman Islands, in Switzerland, in Panama, shell companies, false names, a complete money laundering network. "Your daughter compiled all of this," Wallace said, admiration in his voice. "This is months of work, deep investigation, risky, very risky. Megan knew what she was doing. She knew she was playing with fire. That's why she hid it here, far away from Vincent, in the one place he would never look." I felt a terrible mix of pride and fear. My daughter was brave. Too brave. She had faced a dangerous criminal. She had gathered evidence that could destroy him, but that courage could have cost her her life. Wallace took out his phone and started photographing everything. "This is going straight to the DA's office," he said, "and to the Financial Crimes Unit. With this evidence, we can issue arrest warrants, freeze accounts, dismantle his entire operation. But first, we have to find your daughter." He inserted the USB drive into his laptop. The screen filled with files, more documents, more photos, and then something different appeared, a video file. Wallace opened it. It was Megan, my baby, recording herself with her phone. Her face looked tired, scared, but determined. "If you're seeing this," she began to say in the video, "it's because something happened to me. I want you to know that Julian Hayes, or whatever his real name is a criminal. He launders money for an organization that moves over $50 million a year. I found out everything by accident. I saw documents he left open on his computer. I started digging, and I found an entire world of crime, hidden behind his facade as a respectable businessman." Megan's voice trembled, but she continued. "I gathered all the evidence I could. It's all on this drive. If something happens to me, please give it to the authorities. And Mom, if you're watching this, forgive me. Forgive me for not telling you sooner. I was afraid they would hurt you. Vincent is dangerous. He's connected to very bad people. But I couldn't keep living this lie. I couldn't keep being an accomplice to his crimes. So I decided to act. I decided to be brave, like you always taught me." Tears ran down my face as I watched my daughter on that screen. Her courage, her determination, her fear hidden behind firm words. The video continued. "If you manage to catch Vincent, tell him something for me. Tell him he underestimated the wrong woman." The video ended. The screen went black. The basement was completely silent. The only sounds were my own ragged breathing and the distant hum of Wallace's laptop. Wallace's phone rang. He answered it quickly. Yes, I understand. We're on our way now. He hung up and looked at me with urgency. They found something, one of the properties registered to one of Vincent's shell companies. An abandoned factory about 25 miles from here. Neighbors reported movement in the last few days. A car matching Vincent's was seen there last night. My heart leaped. Megan could be there, in that abandoned factory, alive, waiting to be rescued. Or something worse, something my mind refused to imagine. We have to go now, I said, standing up so fast I got dizzy. Wallace grabbed my arm. We are going. But Carol, I need you to understand something. This could be dangerous. Very dangerous. Vincent knows he's cornered. A man like that is capable of anything. You can't come with us on the operation. You have to stay in the car with police protection while we go in. I shook my head. That's my daughter. I'm not going to sit and wait while you go in. If she's in there, she needs to see me. She needs to know I came for her, that I never abandoned her. Wallace looked me in the eyes. I could see him weighing the situation. Finally, he nodded. All right. But you do exactly what I say, when I say it. No exceptions. Your life and your daughter's could depend on it. I agreed. I would do whatever it took. We ran up the stairs. We put all the evidence back in the envelope. Wallace put it in an official evidence bag. We left the house and got in the car. He drove even faster than before. The sirens were off, but his face showed the urgency we both felt. He was constantly on the radio, coordinating with other officers. Units en route. Tactical team preparing. Ambulances on standby. Every word was a reminder of how serious the situation was. The landscape changed as we left the city. Houses became scarcer. Buildings gave way to empty lots. Abandoned factories. Warehouses with broken windows. It was an industrial area that had died years ago, perfect for hiding secrets. Perfect for doing things no one was supposed to see. The sun was beginning to set on the horizon, painting the sky orange and pink, beautiful colors on top of an ugly world. We arrived at a rendezvous point about a mile from the target factory. There were 3 more patrol cars waiting. 2 unmarked black SUVs, men in bulletproof vests, weapons, communication gear. It all looked like a movie, but this was real. Horribly real. Wallace got out of the car and went to talk to the other officers. I sat there, watching everything. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My breathing was shallow, rapid. I felt like I was going to faint, but I forced myself to stay conscious. Megan needed me to be strong. Wallace returned with a bulletproof vest. Put this on, and stay behind me at all times. We're going to approach on foot, quietly. We don't want to alert Vincent that we're here. If he knows we're coming, he could use your daughter as a hostage. Or worse. He didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. He could kill her before we could get to her. I put the vest on with clumsy hands. It was heavy, uncomfortable, but it gave me a false sense of security. We walked in a group toward the factory. There were about 12 of us, moving through the dry bushes and rubble. The building appeared in front of us. It was huge. 3 floors of gray concrete, broken windows, rusted doors hanging off their hinges, graffiti on the walls, weeds growing everywhere. A place forgotten by time. A perfect place for evil. Wallace raised his hand. We all stopped. He pointed toward the building. On the 2nd floor, there was a dim light. Someone was in there. My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. The officers split into groups. Some circled the building to the left, others to the right. Wallace and I, along with 4 other officers, approached the main entrance. The metal door was slightly ajar. Signs that someone had entered recently. Tire tracks in the dust. Fresh footprints on the dirty concrete. We went in. The inside was dark and smelled like damp, like rusted metal, like abandonment. Our flashlights cut through the darkness, creating shadows that danced on the walls. There was old machinery covered in dust, stacked boxes, cables hanging from the ceiling. Every step we took echoed. We went up a set of metal stairs. Each step creaked under our weight. I tried to breathe as quietly as possible. The fear was so intense it made me dizzy. We reached the second floor. The hallway was long and dark, doors on both sides, most of them open, showing empty offices, destroyed bathrooms, rooms full of trash. But at the end of the hall, there was one closed door. Light filtered out from underneath it. Sounds from the other side. Voices. Someone talking. I couldn't make out the words, but one of those voices made my blood run cold. It was Julian, or Vincent, the man who had deceived my daughter, who had used her, who possibly had her prisoner right there, behind that door. Wallace signaled his team. They positioned themselves on either side of the door, weapons raised, ready to go in. He motioned for me to stay back. Against the wall, safe. I obeyed, even though every fiber of my being wanted to run to that door, to scream my daughter's name, to tear down anything that stood between us. But I knew that would only make things worse. I had to trust these professionals. I had to let them do their job. Wallace counted on his fingers. 1, 2, 3. On 3, they kicked the door in. It burst open with a crash. "Police!" they shouted. "Hands up! Don't move!" I heard shouting, rapid movement, the sound of something falling. And then I heard something that made my heart stop for a second. Megan's voice, screaming, "Mom! Mom! Help me!" I couldn't hold back anymore. I ran toward the door. I burst into the room, and what I saw broke me into 1,000 pieces. Megan was tied to a chair in the center of the room. Her face was swollen, bruises on her cheeks, a split lip. Her hair was dirty and matted. Her clothes were torn, but she was alive. My God, she was alive. Her eyes met mine, and she started to cry. "Mom, it's you. I knew you would come. I knew you'd find me." Vincent was against the wall. 2 officers had him pinned. He was struggling, yelling, "This is a mistake. You have nothing on me. That woman is crazy. She accused me of things I never did." But his words were empty, the desperate lies of a trapped man. I ran to Megan. I fell to my knees in front of her. My hands trembled as I tried to untie the ropes holding her. "My baby. My sweet girl. You're okay. You're safe now. Mom's here." An officer came to help me. He cut the ropes with a knife. Megan fell into my arms. We held each other with a force I had never felt before. She was crying on my shoulder. I was crying into her dirty hair. "Forgive me, Mom," she said between sobs. "I should have told you everything from the beginning. I should have asked for help." "Hush," I said, stroking her head. "You have nothing to apologize for. You were brave, so brave. And now everything is going to be okay." Paramedics entered the room. They needed to check Megan, check her injuries, make sure she didn't have anything serious. I reluctantly pulled away. I left her in the hands of the professionals, even though every second away from her was torture. I looked over to where they had Vincent. Wallace was cuffing him. "Vincent Black, you're under arrest for kidnapping, money laundering, fraud, and a long list of additional charges. You have the right to remain silent." Vincent stopped struggling. His face changed. The desperation turned into something colder, more calculated. He looked at Megan, and then at me. A twisted smile appeared on his lips. "Do you really think this is over?" he said in a calm voice. "Do you really think I work alone? You have no idea who you're dealing with. You have no idea how many people are involved." Megan only scratched the surface. She only saw a small part of something much bigger. Wallace pushed him toward the door. "Shut up, you've talked enough." But Vincent continued as they dragged him out. "The organization knows she talked. They know she gathered evidence. And they're going to come for her. They're going to come for her whole family. You can arrest me, but there are others, plenty of others. And they don't forgive traitors." His words hung in the air like poison, leaving a sense of terror even after he was gone from the room. I went back to Megan. The paramedics were checking her. "She has severe dehydration," one of them said. "Some possibly fractured ribs. Multiple contusions. She needs to go to the hospital for a full workup. But she's going to be okay. She's going to recover." Those last words were a balm for my shattered soul. She's going to be okay. My daughter was going to survive this. They put Megan on a stretcher. I walked beside her, holding her hand. I didn't let go for a single second. Not when we went down the rusty stairs. Not when we crossed the dark factory. Not when we stepped out into the open air, where night had already completely fallen. The ambulance lights painted everything red and blue, like a neon nightmare. But it was real. It was all horribly real. They put her in the ambulance. I climbed in with her. A paramedic started an IV. Another checked her vital signs. Megan looked at me with tired eyes. "Mom," she whispered, Vincent's words. "What he said about the organization. It's true. There are more people involved. Powerful people. With connections." I touched her cheek gently. "Don't talk now, rest. We'll have time to worry about that later." But she shook her head. "You don't understand. They have contacts everywhere. In the police, in the government, in the banks. That's why I was so scared to talk. That's why I hid the evidence at your house. Because I didn't know who I could trust." Her words scared me more than I wanted to admit. If what she was saying was true, then the danger wasn't over. Vincent was arrested, but the organization was still out there. And now they knew Megan had betrayed them. That the authorities had evidence. We were targets. Both of us. A mother and daughter marked by criminals who didn't forgive. We arrived at the hospital, a white, sterile building that smelled like disinfectant. They took Megan straight to the emergency room. I waited outside the examination room, pacing, unable to stay still. Wallace showed up half an hour later. He looked tired, worried. "How's your daughter?" he asked. "They're checking her," I replied. "They say she's going to be okay. Physically, but emotionally," Wallace nodded. "She's going to need time, therapy, support. What she went through was traumatic, but she's strong. That much is clear. I need to talk to you about what Vincent said," I continued, "about the organization, about more people being involved. Is it true?" Wallace sighed. "We're looking into it. The evidence your daughter gathered mentions several names. Some companies, bank accounts connected to influential people. This is going to be a big case, very big, and yes, there could be risks. That's why we're going to offer you protection, both of you, until we dismantle the entire network." Protection sounded good in theory, but I knew no protection was perfect. That criminals found ways, that money bought loyalty, that fear silenced people. I looked through the window of the room where Megan was. My baby, hooked up to machines, covered in bruises, but alive. A survivor. A fighter. The doctor came out an hour later. Megan was going to be admitted for at least 3 days. She needed rehydration, observation, treatment for her ribs, a psychological evaluation. "You can go in to see her," the doctor said. "But only for a few minutes. She needs to rest." I went into the room. Megan was lying in a white bed. She looked so small, so fragile. But when she saw me, she smiled. That broken but real smile. I sat down next to her. I took her hand. "How do you feel?" "Tired," she answered. "Sore, but relieved. Mom, I thought I was going to die in there. In that horrible factory." Vincent was getting more and more nervous, more violent. He said that if he got caught, I would go down with him, that he'd make me look like his accomplice. Tears started to roll down her cheeks. "But you came, just like I knew you would. You found my note. You found the evidence. You saved my life." "It wasn't just me," I said, though my heart was swelling with love. "You were the one who was brave. You investigated. You gathered everything. You left clues so we could find you. You're a hero, Megan. A real hero." She shook her head weakly. "I just did what was right. I couldn't keep living a lie. I couldn't be an accomplice to so much crime, even if it cost me everything." We spent that night in the hospital, me in a chair next to her bed, not sleeping, just watching, making sure she was breathing, that she was really there, alive, safe. The next few days were a whirlwind. Police coming in and out, taking statements, showing photos, asking her to identify people. Prosecutors explaining the legal process. What was coming, the trials. The testimonies. The evidence Megan had gathered was devastating. 17 people were arrested in the first week. Businessmen, a local politician, 2 bank officers, a lawyer, all part of the money laundering ring. The accounts were frozen. Over $80 million seized. It was national news. The papers talked about the brave accountant who had exposed a massive criminal network, though they kept her name confidential for her safety. But not everyone was arrested. Some escaped, fled the country before they could be caught. And those were the most dangerous ones, the ones with the most to lose, the ones with the resources to retaliate. That's why they moved us, Megan and me, to a safe house in another city. Constant police protection, new temporary identities, a life on hold, waiting for the danger to pass. Those were difficult months. Megan had nightmares. She'd wake up screaming in the middle of the night. She saw Vincent in every shadow, in every strange noise. Therapy helped, but the trauma was deep. I was carrying my own weight too, the guilt of not having protected her, the constant fear that someone would find us, the rage against the man who had almost destroyed my daughter. But there were also moments of light, of healing. Megan and I became closer than ever. We talked for hours, about everything, about nothing, making up for lost time. We cooked together like when she was a little girl. We watched movies. We laughed. We cried. We rebuilt ourselves, piece by piece. Vincent's trial was 6 months later. Megan had to testify. It was the hardest day, seeing him sitting there in his suit, his rehearsed look of innocence. But she was strong. She told them everything. In a firm voice, without breaking. She presented the evidence, answered questions. She looked him in the eye and didn't look away. And when she was finished, I was in the front row, crying with pride. The verdict came 3 weeks after Megan's testimony. Guilty on all charges: kidnapping, money laundering, fraud, racketeering, forgery. The list was endless. Vincent Black was sentenced to 35 years in prison without the possibility of parole. When the judge read the sentence, I saw his face crumble. That mask of control finally fell. He looked like what he really was, a common criminal caught in his own lies. But the sentence didn't bring the relief I expected. Megan was still scared. I still looked over my shoulder every time we went out, because we knew that some of his associates were still free, somewhere in the world, planning maybe, waiting maybe. The danger had lessened, but it hadn't disappeared completely. We were living in a permanent state of alert, a tension that never fully relaxed. One day, 2 months after the sentencing, we had an unexpected visitor. Wallace showed up at our safe house. He had news, good and bad. The good news first, he said, sitting in our small living room. We captured 3 more of the organization's key members, 1 in Brazil, 2 in Spain. With their arrests, the network is practically dismantled. They no longer pose an organized threat. I felt some of the weight lift from my shoulders. And the bad news? Megan asked cautiously. Wallace hesitated. There's one still free, the highest one in the hierarchy, a man they only know as the architect. No one knows his real name. No one has seen him in person. He ran everything from the shadows. And, according to our intel, he is furious about everything that happened. About the losses, the arrests, and specifically, he's furious with the person who exposed him. Silence filled the room. Megan turned pale. With me, she whispered. He's furious with me. Wallace nodded slowly. We have information that he's put a price on your head in the criminal underworld. It's not huge, but it's enough to attract attention. That's why I need you to understand that the protection must continue, that you can't let your guard down, that anything strange, any suspicious person, you must report it immediately. Megan broke down. She began to cry silently. It's never going to end, she said through her sobs. I'm going to live like this forever. Looking over my shoulder, being afraid, hiding, I went to her and held her. No, I told her firmly. We are not going to live like this. We are not going to let that man steal our lives. He's already taken enough. He's already done enough damage. I looked at Wallace. What can we do? How do we catch this man? Wallace leaned forward. We're working on it, tracking his transactions, his communications. But he's smart, very careful. It could take time. Years, even. Time we didn't have. Time Megan didn't deserve to lose living in fear. There has to be something else, I insisted. Some way to draw him out of hiding. To make him make a mistake. Wallace looked at me for a long time. There is one way, he said finally, but it's risky, very risky. We could use you as bait. Let information leak that you're in a specific location. Wait for him to send someone, and when he does, follow the trail back to him. But that means exposing you, putting you in real danger. I can't in good conscience recommend it. I'll do it, Megan said suddenly. Her voice was firm now, no trembling. I'll do whatever it takes to end this, to get my life back. Mom doesn't deserve to live like this because of me. I don't deserve to live like this. If there's a chance to catch him, I have to take it. I looked at her, surprised. Megan, it's dangerous. You could be killed. She took my hands. Mom, I already almost died once, and you saved me. Now it's my turn to be brave, to finish what I started, to make sure he can never hurt anyone else ever again. We spent weeks planning. Wallace brought in experts, specialists in undercover operations, in security, in tracking criminals. The plan was complex. We were going to let information about our location leak, through channels we knew the architect monitored. Then we would wait, with invisible protection all around us, snipers on nearby buildings, undercover agents on the streets, tracking technology ready to activate the moment someone got close. The designated day arrived. It was a sunny Saturday. Ironic that something so dangerous would happen on such a beautiful day. Megan and I went for a walk as instructed, in the park near our temporary house, acting normal, relaxed. Even though my heart was pounding like a war drum, even though every shadow looked like a threat, even though every person who passed by could be a killer. We walked for an hour. Nothing. We sat on a bench, ate ice cream, talked about trivial things. Still nothing. I was beginning to think it wasn't going to work, that the architect was too smart to fall for the trap. Then I saw something. A man in a dark jacket, walking too slowly, looking at us too often. I touched Megan's hand. I think that's him, I whispered. She didn't turn. She kept her eyes forward, just as they had taught us. Wallace spoke into the tiny earpiece I had hidden. We see him. Stay calm. The man got closer. He took out his phone, took a picture. Then he turned and started walking away quickly. Too quickly. 2 agents intercepted him, stopped him. There was a struggle, shouts. The man tried to run, but there were more agents. They surrounded him, subdued him, cuffed him. Wallace appeared at our side. Breathe, he said. We got him. And he has a phone with a direct line. We're going to trace it. We're going to follow every connection until we get to the end. I felt my legs go weak. Megan was trembling next to me. We did it, she whispered. We really did it, Mom. I held her tight. It wasn't over yet, but we were close. So close to real freedom, to a life without constant fear. The next few days were an agonizing wait. Wallace and his team worked non-stop. Tracing signals, following leads. The arrested man's phone led to another contact, that contact to another. And so they followed the chain, until finally, 4 days later, Wallace appeared at our door with a huge smile. We found him, he said, the architect. He was in a mansion in the Bahamas, operating from paradise while ruining lives. But not anymore. He was arrested this morning, along with his last associates. It's over. It's really over. Megan collapsed into my arms, crying. But this time, they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of relief, of release, of knowing that we could finally breathe, that we could sleep without nightmares, that we could walk down the street without constantly looking back. The nightmare was truly over. It was 3 months before we could return to our normal life, or what was left of it. The safe house became a memory. The constant guards disappeared. The fake identities were filed away. Megan and I returned to my little yellow house with the garden out front, the place where it had all begun, where I had found the evidence that saved my daughter's life. But nothing was the same. Megan was no longer the same woman who had married Vincent years ago. She was stronger now, wiser, but she also carried scars that would never fully heal. She had left her job at the accounting firm. Too many memories, too many questions from curious colleagues. Now she worked from home as an independent consultant, choosing her own clients, her own hours, her own life. I wasn't the same either. The woman who had lived quietly alone after her husband died was gone. In her place was someone who knew the world was darker than she thought, that danger could hide behind perfect smiles, that she should never completely let her guard down. But I had also learned that I was stronger than I knew, that when your daughter needs you, you find strength you never knew you had. One afternoon, 6 months after the architect's arrest, Wallace came to visit. He brought final news. The architect's trial was over. 60 years in prison, no chance of reduction. His entire fortune confiscated, his criminal empire completely dismantled. And there's something else, he said, pulling out an envelope. The government has a reward program for informants who help dismantle criminal organizations. For the information you provided, Miss Megan, you are entitled to compensation. Megan opened the envelope. Her eyes widened. This is a lot of money, she whispered. Wallace nodded. $2 million. It's the least you deserve after everything you went through, everything you risked. Use it well. Live well. Megan looked at the check for a long time. Then she looked at me. Mom, this is yours too. I wouldn't have survived without you. Without your courage in coming to find me, believing in me, fighting for me. None of this would have been possible. I shook my head, but she insisted. We're going to use this money to start over. Together. Like it always should have been. We used part of the money to renovate the house, to make it safer, more comfortable, a place where we could both heal. Megan also started a foundation to help women who had been victims of domestic violence, of abuse, of manipulation. She wanted her experience to mean something, for her pain to help others. I was so proud of her, of the woman she had become, forged in fire. But there was something that still haunted us. Something we didn't talk about but both felt. Trauma doesn't disappear with money. It doesn't disappear with justice. It lives inside you, in the nightmares, in the moments of panic when a noise makes you jump, in the distrust you feel toward strangers. Megan was still in therapy. I started going too. We learned to live with the scars, not to let them define us, but not to pretend they didn't exist either. A year after the rescue, we decided to do something symbolic. Go back to the building where Megan had lived with Vincent, confront the place where her nightmare began. Wallace went with us, for security, but also for support. We arrived on a spring morning. The building looked the same, modern, elegant, deceitful. We went up to the 7th floor. The apartment had been sold. New tenants lived there now. People who didn't know the history of those walls, the horror that had happened inside. We didn't go in. We just stood in front of the door. Megan put her hand on the wood. This is where I lost 3 years of my life, she said softly. This is where I let fear control me, where I let a man turn me into a prisoner in my own existence. But it's also where I found the courage to fight back, where I decided I'd rather die free than live as a slave. This door doesn't have power over me anymore. We went down together. We walked out of the building. The sun was shining outside. Life went on. People walked down the streets. Children played in the nearby park. The world kept spinning, indifferent to our pain. And that was okay, because it meant we could move on too, that we weren't frozen in that moment of horror, that we had a future. Helen, the neighbor who had warned me that terrible day, saw us leaving. She ran toward us. Tears streamed down her face. I've thought about you every day, she said, hugging Megan. I felt so guilty, like I should have known, should have done something sooner. Megan hugged her back. You have nothing to be guilty about. You helped me more than you know. Your warning to my mother probably saved my life. Thank you for caring. On the way home in Wallace's car, Megan looked out the window. "You know what's strangest, Mom?" she said. "For months I lived in so much fear, so much terror that Vincent or his partners would find me, kill me. And now that it's over, now that they're all in prison, I'm afraid of something else. I'm afraid of forgetting that over time, this will all feel like a bad dream, that I'll lose the lessons I learned, the strength I found." I took her hand. "You won't forget. The scars don't let you forget. But that's not a bad thing, because those scars are proof that you survived, that you fought, that you won. Carry those lessons with you, but don't let them define you. You are more than what happened to you. So much more." She nodded. She squeezed my hand. And in that moment, I knew we were going to be okay. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, step by step, day by day, we were going to rebuild our lives on a stronger foundation, on truth instead of lies, on real love instead of manipulation. Megan's foundation grew. In the first year, it helped 50 women escape abusive situations. It gave them shelter, legal counsel, emotional support, the tools she wished she'd had. I got involved too. I cooked for the women in the shelter. I listened to them. I showed them that you can survive, that you can move on, that it's never too late to save your own life. The media eventually lost interest in our story. New scandals appeared, new crimes. We were forgotten by the public, and that was a relief, because it meant we could just be normal people again. Not victims, not heroes, just Carol and Megan, mother and daughter, survivors, fighters. It's been 2 years since that day the neighbor whispered for me not to go into my daughter's house. 2 years that feel like a lifetime, as if the woman I was before all this existed in another universe, in another reality where the world was simpler and threats didn't hide behind charming smiles and promises of love. Megan turned 35 last month. We had a small party in the backyard, just close people, true friends who were with her during the dark times. Wallace came, too. He'd become more than the detective who saved her life. He was family now. A protective uncle who called every week to make sure we were okay, that we didn't need anything. That night, after everyone had left, Megan and I sat on the porch, the same porch where I used to sit alone after my husband died, where I spent my afternoons watering plants and wondering if my life had any purpose beyond just existing. Now I knew the answer. My purpose had been to prepare me for the moment my daughter needed me most, to be strong enough to save her when the world collapsed around her. "Mom," Megan said, breaking the silence, "I want to tell you something. I met someone. A man." My heart stopped for a second. The instinctive fear returned, but I forced myself to breathe, to listen. His name is Mark. He's a therapist. I met him at one of the support groups the foundation organizes. He works with trauma victims, and we've been talking, just talking, for now. But Mom, for the first time in years, I feel like I can trust again, that not all men are like Vincent. Tears filled my eyes, tears of relief, of joy, of hope. "That's wonderful, honey, wonderful. And this time," she continued, "I'm going to get to know him well, very well. I'm going to ask all the uncomfortable questions. I'm going to investigate every detail of his life, and if anything at all, seems suspicious, I'm going to tell you." She laughed. A genuine laugh I hadn't heard in so long. "I know, Mom, and that's exactly what I need. I need your vigilant eyes, your mother's instinct. Because this time, I'm not going to ignore the signs. This time, I'm going to listen." The foundation continued to grow. We had helped over 200 women in 2 years, some escaping violent marriages, others from abusive relationships, some discovering their partners were using them financially. Every story was different, but they all shared the same thread. Strong women who had been manipulated, controlled, made to feel like they had no options. And we showed them that they did, that there is always a way out, that it's never too late to save yourself. Megan gives talks now, at universities, at conferences. She tells her story without shame, without hiding anything. She talks about how Vincent slowly isolated her from her friends, from her family, how he started by controlling small things, what clothes to wear, who to talk to, how much time to spend with her mother, and how those little things became an invisible cage. A prison with no physical bars, but just as real. I go with her sometimes. And when they ask me to speak, I tell my part. The part of the mother who didn't see the signs, who believed the excuses, who thought she was being overprotective instead of trusting her gut. And I tell other mothers, trust that feeling in your stomach, that little voice that says something is wrong. It's not paranoia, it's wisdom. It's a mother's love, alerting you to danger. One afternoon, we received a letter. It was from one of the women we had helped the year before. Her name was Paige. She had escaped a violent marriage with our support. The letter read, "Dear Carol and Megan, I want you to know that because of you, I got my life back. I have a new job, my own apartment. And for the first time in 10 years, I sleep without fear, without waking up startled. My children are happy, safe. And it's all because you showed me it was possible, that I deserved better. I can never repay you for what you did for me. But I can live well, I can be happy, and that is the best way to honor your help." Megan cried when she read that letter. I did too, because those words validated everything. All the pain, all the fear, all the trauma. If our nightmare could become salvation for other people, then it had been worth it. Then the suffering had meaning, a purpose. Vincent wrote from prison, a pathetic letter asking for forgiveness, saying he had changed, that he understood the damage he had caused, that if Megan could find it in her heart to forgive him, he could die in peace. Megan read the letter once, then she tore it into tiny pieces. "I don't owe him anything," she said in a firm voice. "Not forgiveness, not a response, not another thought. He made his choices. Now he lives with the consequences. I made mine, and I'm going to live free." That night, we spent together watching old movies, eating popcorn, laughing at silly jokes, just being a mother and daughter. No trauma, no fear, just us. And I realized that we had won. Not just against Vincent, not just against the criminal organization. We had won against the fear itself, against the idea that we were victims forever. We had reclaimed our lives, our laughter, our ability to be happy. The garden bloomed that spring like never before. Coral-colored roses, white jasmine, yellow daisies, as if the earth itself was celebrating our survival. Megan planted a new tree, a cherry tree that would bloom with pink flowers every year. "This tree is going to grow with us," she said as she dug the hole. "It's going to witness our healing, our new life. And when we're old, Mom, when I'm your age, we're going to sit under its shade and remember all this, not with pain, but with pride, because we survived, because we didn't let them destroy us. Now, when I sit on the porch at sunset, I no longer feel alone. Megan lives with me, not out of fear, not out of necessity, but by choice, because we discovered that we are stronger together. That real family isn't what fate gives you, but what you choose to build every day with love and truth." Sometimes I still dream about that day, about the neighbor whispering for me not to go in, about the blood in the apartment, about the fear in my daughter's eyes when I found her tied to that chair. But I don't wake up screaming anymore. I wake up and I look across the hall. Megan's bedroom door is slightly open. I can hear her steady breathing, and I know she's safe. That we are both safe. The house doesn't feel the same as before. The walls hold secrets now, stories of courage, of rescue, of a mother's love stronger than any threat. And every time I pass the basement, past that loose brick where Megan hid the evidence that saved her, I touch the wall with gratitude, because that small, dark space was the bridge between death and life, between despair and hope. From that day on, I understood that danger doesn't always come from the outside. Sometimes it sleeps in your own bed, eats at your table, kisses you with lips that hide poison. But I also understood that true love is stronger, that a mother never gives up, that courage isn't the absence of fear, but acting in spite of it, and that surviving isn't enough. You have to live, really live. And that's exactly what we do now. We live.